play in a dark room and wear headphones for the best experience. Turn on dyslexic font? No. Before you get into the game, there are a few things that you might want to know. Game link in the description below. One thing that should be noted is that you can play through the upcoming doors in any order. You don't need to play them left to right. Don't you dictate which way I'm going to do things. Some audio events in this game also make use of stereo effects. Thus, it's best to enjoy the game with headphones. The rest should be pretty self-explanatory. Don't disappoint her. Who's her? Welcome to Mycorrhiza. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but I'm going to go by how you spell it. This is a horror visual novel that is talked about quite a lot within horror visual novels. And some of the biggest inspirations includes the work of Junji Ito Masaaki Nakayama. While Scott is trying to find a way back home, reality distorts, and people's morals start shifting in cruel and unexpected ways. A peculiar plant transforming animals, a horrifying comedy and horror, and a strange building trapping people. Each of the three arcs explores different terrors, so one for each door, I imagine. This game features depictions of violence, blood, and graphic imagery. You have been advised before watching this, so let us go through the door. This is a game which has been in development for a long time. Welcome to a world of distorted minds. The beginning. Let's see what we have in store. I never played the game in its demo or it's like one of its updated versions. I waited for the full game. My eyes were burning. It felt like hot coals were lying on my eyelids. I slowly opened them and attempted to heave myself up from the cold asphalt, but I failed. My whole body was heavy, and my head felt like it was being squashed by a hydraulic press. After a few attempts, I finally succeeded and tried to make out where I was. The fog in my mind lifted slowly, and I realized that I was in a dark alleyway. My vision was still blurry, and I had trouble keeping my eyes open. But I could tell that I had never seen this place before. Slowly my heart began to race. Was I abducted? Mugged? What happened to me? I hastily checked my body. Fortunately, finding no wounds or any body parts missing. Why was I feeling this weak then? Maybe I was drugged? As I tried to recall what might have happened to me, my eyes finally focused. I could see a house in front of me. A majestic house in its own ways. It was the only house on the street with its lights on. The dirty yellow glow shone through almost every single visible window. I felt some relief knowing that the tenants were awake. Perhaps they could tell me where I was, where I am. I approached the front door. It took me some searching to find the doorbell through the overgrown ivy. A deep gong rang out from within the house when I pressed it. The sound, amplified by the cold wind cutting through my shirt, made me tense up. What an odd choice for a doorbell sound. I thought while wrapping my upper arms to warm myself. Rapping? I waited. No one answered. My mind twisted in confusion. Why was no one coming? I rang the doorbell again. Then I tried knocking. No response. No one was coming. I didn't understand. Did they forget to turn off the lights and go on vacation? As a last resort, I tried turning the doorknob, and the door opened. It actually opened. This worried me. Did something happen to the family living here? Or perhaps this is a guide for you. Perhaps I should find a phone and call the police. Suddenly a loud crash echoed through the street. My heart started to pound as my body tensed up. I wanted to dash into the house, but my feet refused to move. What was that sound? Was someone out there? Here. Pictures of otherworldly monsters and armed kidnappers popped into my mind as my eyes scanned the darkness. The world was silent once more. I was still on edge, but my body slowly started to relax as I regained my composure. I decided I didn't want to find out what that was. Cautiously, I stepped through the threshold and finally closed the door behind me. I entered a dimly lit hallway. The contours of minimalist furniture were illuminated by the streetlights outside. I felt an immediate lurch of guilt as I was trespassing into a stranger's home. "Hello? Is anyone here?" No answer. The house was eerily quiet. I cautiously ventured further down the front hall and stepped in front of one of the doors. A dim yellow light seeped silently through the bottom crack. I turned the knob. Locked. Then the next one. Also locked. They all seemed to be. I frowned. Why were the lights behind these locked doors lit? It gave me an uneasy feeling. The door at the very end of the hall was the only one that I hadn't tried yet. I grasped its handle and turned it slowly. Alas, it swung open to complete darkness. Once again my body tensed up while my mind started to conjure horrific images. A beast with dislocated limbs and crooked teeth creeping towards me from the darkness. A floor littered with corpses and walls stained with blood. A giant spider sitting in a corner, waiting for its chance to strike. My hand shook as I reached to flick on the light. And, it was an utterly ordinary bedroom. My heartbeat slowly calmed down as I realized that I seemed to be safe. I felt almost silly getting scared of nothing. A quick search yielded nothing but barren, dusty shelves. The bed was the only meaningful object present. Slowly but surely a wave of fatigue washed over me. With my adrenaline rush fading away, I found that I was more exhausted than I had realized, and the bed is a lovely welcoming sign to relax, like a worm wiggling its way into an apple. A single thought slowly invaded my mind. I had to sleep. Trying to fight it made it worse, as if some outside power was affecting me. Sleeping in a stranger's bed in a stranger's home was the last thing I wanted to do right now. The first time you move into your own house or a new home, isn't that technically sleeping in a stranger's home? But it was soon the only thing I could think about as my consciousness faded. I had to sleep. The world turned dark, and the soft covers of the bed pulled me deeper and deeper into the black abyss. And here we are. Is this going to be the introductory of the game? Ah, here we have the doors there. An introductory. I have hands, obviously. What does one? Oh. Hi. Oh. Real creepy. If I read, like, the inspirations, then I'd have more of an understanding as to, like, what's going on. But these horrific images, they are psychologically and visually powerful. Mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza. So we have 3 doors. Choose a door to start. Well, I think I will be choosing my way into the middle door. Oh, hi there. That is really cool. Distorted Mind Comics. A guide to funny faces. Oh, dearie me. Kind of reminds me of those monsters from Chaos Child that the protagonist envisioned. I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. Yeah, it's real hot at the moment in the UK. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore, but it must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. After coming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. This is a really nice game so far. Lovely visuals, horrifying. A look out of a window confirmed that it was still night. This world is in internal darkness. I had either slept for the whole day or only for a few hours. Considering how tired I felt, it must have been the latter. I left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case. They were still locked. I really wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes, and they indeed had started to smell slightly sour. That alliteration there. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. Not even hope. I'd be better off out in the streets, even if it was still dark. And here we are in the streets. Are we in New York or something? Look at those skylines. All I needed to do was find a police station. They'd definitely be able to help me. As I wandered around, I grew more and more aware of how big this town was. The buildings were tall and nature was rather scarce. The streets, however, were completely empty. Suddenly my ears began to pick up the subtle sounds of laughter. The sounds turned to unease in my empty stomach. It was awfully late for such a public crowd. There wasn't cheering or rounds of applause, just laughter, loud and obnoxious laughter that didn't seem to subside or grow. Constant. It became louder as I approached the town's center. Soon it turned into a wave of commotion by what sounded to be a massive crowd. They just laughed, and kept laughing. It sounded dreadful. I was tempted to change course and avoid them. Yet this direction was my best bet for finding an inn or a police station. These priorities outweighed my sense of danger. I pressed on. The laughter was billowing with hundreds of voices. until finally I can glimpse the source of the commotion. Oh, it was a comedy show of sorts. The crowd gathered around a performer who was doing something to make them laugh. I strained to see the action, peeking through the small gaps between the people while keeping a safe distance. The group was just too dense. I couldn't see any details. Curiosity overwhelmed me, and I started pushing through the people. They seemed to melt away without paying me much attention, as if we're the only real ones here. As I approached, I passed a table with books. I couldn't make out their title. The title is above me, by the way. But I could see something that resembled a mask on the cover, or below me actually. Paying it no mind, I pressed onwards. I couldn't understand what was happening. The performer wasn't making any sounds. I couldn't make out any movement from beyond the crowd either. What was so entertaining? It was multi-faces. They all had a different emotion behind them, possibly. Finally, I reached the front. But what I saw was the opposite of funny. It was horrifying. Whoa, hi there. You are definitely an interesting, fascinating entity. What was wrong with his head? He turned his hips so that everyone in the crowd could have a clear view, as if he didn't want anyone to miss it. Why are people laughing at this? A bystander heard me. I don't know. His face just seems so funny. I mean, look at it. Which one, though? I stared at him in disbelief. He and the others really did seem to find us funny. Were they saying something I wasn't? Perception. No matter how I looked at it, it didn't seem like anything other than disturbing. What one person sees is not technically what another person sees. I averted my gaze and walked away. I wanted nothing to do with this madness. And it glows. I continued to comb through the town's centre while trying to keep my distance from the crowd. But this is the tale of funny faces, and you will find funny faces everywhere. Soon I noticed that the sun had already started to rise, and I still hadn't found anything that even vaguely resembled a police station. Maybe there just aren't anything around here like that. It's kind of creepy, isn't it? I'd walked by a girl that was standing nearby. She was watching the crowd from a distance. Yeah, it is. I was glad to hear that someone else was thinking the same. An awkward pause followed, but maybe she also finds what everyone else is funny, creepy, despite seeing the same face. I'd been under the impression that she wanted to start up a conversation, but my bad. No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. I just wanted to see what here we go. I'd walked by a girl that was standing nearby. She was watching the crowd from a distance. Or the other thing. What was the other thing? Damn it, I didn't mean to go for that quickly. I think it was a sentence smaller. Are you hungry? Blood shot to my face. It was true that I was feeling starved. Swallowing my pride, I nodded. I have a sandwich with me. You can have it. Are you sure? No worries, I'm not hungry anyways. I had to hold myself back as to not lunge onto it, but I kept my cool and ate it cautiously as to not embarrass myself. Some of my strength returned to me. In the meanwhile, I decided to ask her about this town. Sorry, I don't really know my way around here that well. Oh, so you're not from here? No, not really. Maybe I can help you look? I'm feeling a bit uneasy about being alone here anyways. I glanced back in the direction of the laughing crowd. Sure, I would really appreciate that. I'm Scott, by the way. I'm May. Nice to meet you. We set off to look for help. The idea of to call someone I knew from May's phone came up, but she didn't have it on her, unfortunately. We approached several people to ask them for directions, but all of them seemed to ignore us, as if we were never there in the first place, like that girl from the another anime. I tried to make some small talk with May every now and then, but her replies were always short and didn't leave much room for follow-ups. But she perked up when I asked her about her family. I have a sister. At first I thought that would be all I'd get out of her, but she continued after a short pause. Surprisingly, she's been home more recently. Usually she'd leave early and return late, or not return home at all for several days. Her job is really important, so it makes sense, but I was really happy when she told me that she wouldn't go to work for a while. I assumed she was finally able to request some time off, but alas, she continued to work even at home. May hung her head. Bad alliteration again. It seemed like I had touched on a sensitive topic. I thought of ways to console her or check her up, but couldn't come up with anything to say. Since I didn't have any siblings, it was hard to relate. But it seemed like she really loved her sister. I could actually relate to more to May's sister. Just as her, I too have barely been home due to my work. And what is your line of work, Scott? And just like her, I'd likely be working even if I was home. But as opposed to May's sister, I didn't have anyone who was expecting me back home. I decided against poking any further and instead shifted my focus back to asking people for directions. Without much luck. Oddly enough, it was as if they were all going in the same direction, the town centre. Do you think they're going to see that performer? Silence. Maybe she just hadn't heard me. I turned around to ask her again, but she was nowhere to be seen. Just as I'd finished that thought, I felt a presence behind me. I slowly turned around. Oh no! What a horrifying, funny face this is! What the hell? What do you think? Do I look funny? What? No, get away from me! I took a few steps back, almost afraid the man would lunge at me. But he didn't. He just stood there, with his eyes peeled open. I see. Maybe I didn't do it quite right. And with that, he walked off, disappointed. He took a book out of his pocket and started flipping through it. For some weird reason, he seemed familiar. Familiar, you say? This town was giving me the creeps. I need to get out of here as fast as I could. But as I turned around, I saw that most of the people walking by had distorted their faces in one way or another. It was beginning. It was as if a virus had spread while we were looking for help. This was madness. I needed to get out of here. But where to? And where was May? I was getting kind of worried. Now, we're going to stay on the main street. I felt uneasy around these people, but I didn't want to negatively impact my chances at finding help. Quickly I hurried off while trying to ignore everyone's gaze. But wherever I went, those people were everywhere. On top of that, the town seemed to have no end. It's almost like the entire world itself is one big town. I couldn't find a road that led out, no matter how long I searched. Just as I was wondering about what to do, I recognized someone standing near a building. There you are, you had me worried. Oh, I'm sorry, I had something to take care of. That sounded oddly vague, but I didn't want to be rude, so I dropped it. She did give me a sandwich after all. Did you have any luck finding your way back home? Nope. Still nothing. And on top of that, there are all of these weird people walking around. Actually, I know someone who may be able to help. You do? Yes, but don't live far from here. How about I introduce you? Oh, yeah, sure. Wasn't she new in this town? Maybe she met them while we were separated. I considered questioning her. But this was the only lead I had so far, and I didn't want to lose this chance. We arrived at an old, tall building. I watched May from the corner of my eye. Something seemed different about her, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Perhaps it was just my imagination. They live on the highest floor. This building is pretty old and not many people live here anymore, so it's a bit run down. I'd appreciate it if you went Why are you introducing me into a place that you know about somehow, but yet you want us to go first? I didn't protest and led us into the structure. The building was quite desolate, just as she had said. This place made me feel uneasy. I didn't want to stay here any longer than I had to. Not only was I afraid that everything would come down on our heads any minute, I could only imagine what could lurk in these abandoned halls. I didn't blame her for wanting me to go first. After climbing a set of stairs, May spoke up again. It should be the door at the end of this hall. I saw the door she was referring to. It was probably the only door in the entire building that wasn't damaged. The clean coat of paint was an eerie contrast in the ravaged environment. And the one living there can help me? No reply. I turned around and saw... What did you see? Nothing. May was gone. Again. She could have at least said goodbye. I walked up to the door to knock, but it was already open. Maybe I had the wrong door after all. Yet May had seemed certain. Of course, we are going to enter the apartment. Perhaps they forgot to lock the door. Or May had already notified them that they were coming and they left it open for us. I gave the door a soft push. Hello? No reply. It was a very small apartment. The door opened to the living room, which seemed to double as the bedroom. A single corridor led to two more rooms, likely the bathroom and the kitchen. Just like the door itself, everything looked way too clean and tidy compared to the hallway outside. I stepped in and peered through a window, hoping to spot this person that I was supposed to meet. Everything looked normal from up here, but I knew that wasn't the case. Something was wrong with this town, and I was trapped here. Would I ever be able to return home? I had people who relied on me. Would my team at the lab manage without me? I tore myself away from the window. This wasn't the time to think about that. I should be concentrating on finding a way out. We are going to take a look around. We're going to check the photos. I took a look at the photos hanging on the walls. Most of them were paintings that depicted nature. Only a few of them were photographs. One with a note scribbled onto it caught my eye. It depicted a man and a woman having a picnic. The note said Sabrina and Frederick, best friend forever. Sorry. It seemed like one of them was living here. Or maybe both. Or neither of them. At the very least, I would now be able to recognize the tenant once I see them. We're going to check the desk. The surface of the desk was crammed with beauty products. A single mirror was standing amongst them. A small book was buried beneath the clutter. We're going to check the mirror, obviously. My own reflection peered back at me. I looked like I had aged a decade. My lack of sleep had really done a number on me. Not to mention all these really strange occurrences today. If I ever get out of this, I'll need a long vacation, I thought. Maybe this is definitely the vacation in itself. As I looked in the mirror, a newspaper page hanging on the wall behind me caught my eye. I approached it and skimmed it in case it had any hints on what was going on in this town. But I was unfortunately wrong. This issue of Kijam Hive News, as the paper was called, was several years old. The subheading read, "A rising new artist has wowed the judges of the Kijam Height art competition. We can't wait to see her next work. She has a bright future ahead of her," one of the judges said. This article didn't seem to be important to my current situation, and I couldn't see any more newspaper snippets around. Disappointed, I averted my gaze and took another look around the room. Wasn't there another thing that we could actually look at? Check the book. I moved the small bottles aside and picked up the book underneath. The cover depicted a man with a distorted facial expression. The title read, "The Art of Humor." I flipped through it. It was apparently a guide by the most hilarious one that explained how to make funny faces, but the pictures in the book were more disturbing than humorous. Again, what one person sees is another person's different. One description of a technique caught my eye. "Finally, we arrived at addition. Like removal, this is a very risky technique, reserved only for the cream of the crop. It may sound simple, though all you have to do is add and never stop. Search for features that are a disgrace to facial humor. Then tape them for your Tape them for yourself and pair them off. The person might even thank you for all your help with removal." I glanced at the pictures beside the text and shook my head in disgust. I started skimming through it quickly, and sure enough, it was full of similar depictions. On the very last page, I came to a sudden stop. There was a key taped to it. Did the key come with the book? Or did the owner of the book hide it in here? Oh well. It didn't matter to me anyway, since I didn't know what door the key was for. Suddenly I heard a sound outside the apartment. There was no time to place the book back under the bottles. I stuffed it into my pocket. I hastily slipped inside a closet and carefully pulled it shut. I wasn't sure why I was hiding, but I had an awful feeling in my gut she might be here for a while. Finding a stranger standing in your apartment probably wouldn't be something someone would take in stride. Then again, finding one in your closet would be even worse. The boogeyman. Oh, well, aren't you glamorous? I watched through slits in the door as I entered the apartment. This is going to develop. They stopped in the entryway and took a look around the room. Was this Lieutenant? Was this Sabrina? Shadows were obscuring parts of their body. I strained my eyes trying to see what they looked like. They definitely had a funny face, but what I saw made me cover my mouth to suppress a gasp. Oh dear. She has a beard as well. Whoa, hi there, aren't you just super duper funny? The woman's face was ravaged. Fleshy chunks clung to her forehead. She has more than one face. Were those face parts? Forgot to close the door again. She spoke to herself and moved as if nothing was wrong. But her face, it was horrendous. She walked up to the mirror. This looks so much better, just like in the book. I should check the text again. I may have missed something. Oh gosh, the book we just hid. Oh no. I could feel the weight of the book in my pocket. I was sure I put it here. She rummaged to the desk. What? What? Where is it? I knew it was here. It was here. She cast the bottles from the desk to the ground. They shattered, spilling their sickly, sweet-smelling contents across the carpet. The panic drained from her face. It's okay. It's okay. I just need to buy a new one. It's completely fine. I'll just ask the most hilarious one if he has one left over. He has to. She scurried out of the apartment, leaving the door wide open. I remained frozen in the closet for a few more minutes. My heart slowly calmed itself. Once I was sure that she was really gone, I stepped out. I need to get myself as far away from this building and this town as fast as I possibly could. Oh dear. And as I was about to leave the apartment, a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my arm. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around, but I had already become too weak. My feet gave in, and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. The woman? May? Or even somebody else? Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. A guide to funny faces. You found key 2? A guide to funny faces. That closes. And where do we go from here? So, a different door will lead you to a different destination. I see. So, I think we have at least 2 more episodes in front of us. Thank you all so much for watching this video on Mycorrhiza. If you would like to play the game for yourselves, there is a link down in the description below where you'll be able to purchase this game in order to witness this bizarre yet brilliantly made tale. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.